Good evening, everybody. This is Casper from the Tropical Weather Threat Society bringing you our nightly update regarding the tropical basins pretty much across the world. And as of this afternoon, as of the 2 p.m. outlook, we have something for the Atlantic Basin. But first, one thing that I would like to point out today is September 10th. September 10th is the climatological peak of hurricane season. There is some debate whether it should be the 11th or the 12th. Really, the second week of September is going to be your quote unquote peak season for tropical cyclones and potential hurricanes. This is the first time since 2016 that we haven't had a named storm in the basin on September 10th. Now, this morning we didn't have anything, but this afternoon, as of the 2 p.m. outlook, the National Hurricane Center has highlighted the area that we've been monitoring and talking about in the models for the last few days, and it now has a obvious 0% chance of development over the next 48 hours. It's still on land, and a 20% chance of development over the next 7 days somewhere here in this highlighted area. Although it's still quite early, this could shift. Now, if we take a look at the ensemble guidance, one thing that I would like to point out is the Euro this afternoon. As we could see yesterday, we didn't really have much. We had a few. Then the overnight run really got aggressive with the Euro at the 0Z. Now, if we look at the 12Z run, it has shifted a little bit to the south and to the west, but has also lost some of the signal associated with it. So we still have a good amount of circles here, being that there are 50 members and the amount of circles that we see, the probability brings it somewhere in the 40 to 50% chance range here throughout day 10. If we compare that to the Euro AI, this is a little bit of a different story. As we could see, the Euro AI, if we go back from run to run to run, there was a little bit of uncertainty and some spread here in the 18Z, but then if you notice with the 0Z, 6Z, and the 12Z, there is a little bit of clustering with some of these tracks, but then also compared to some of the previous runs, maybe not as much intensity on them. Although the probability on this would be quite high. You're looking at 60% plus as far as the overall members. Now, if we compare that with the GEFS has quite a bit of spread going out 10 days. I'll pop this to 7 so we can get rid of our little area down here into the Western Caribbean. And if we look through 7 days, there are some areas of development, but not a ton. If we push this out to 10 days, then it almost seems like that there are two potential camps of development, one going like this and another one coming out and headed like this, which this particular track here is the one that would be a little bit more in line with what we are seeing with the Euro. This, if you look here, and we'll go back and check again, as you could see, neither of the Euros agree with this more northwesterly track coming straight out of the main development region and drawing northward well before 45. So it's kind of interesting to see what the GFS or the GEFS is pulling there. Now, we're going to compare all those with the Google DeepMind. Now, as I run this out, you will see that we're going to get to day 7. Now, here we are with the Google DeepMind in day 7, and there are a few of these ensemble members here that are calling for something. Now, One thing that I would like to point out is that the Google DeepMind has added a new intensity distribution portion. I find this to be absolutely amazing because it will show us at in 6 hour increments exactly how many of these ensembles are what certain strength. And like we'll take here, for example, Saturday, September 20th at 0Z UTC, which would be 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time on September 19th on Friday. All right, this is Universal Time. So it's always going to be 4 hours ahead of Eastern Daylight Time. 5 hours ahead if it's Eastern Standard Time. But if we look at this, 10 of the ensemble members say tropical depression, 9 say tropical storm, 1 category 1, 2 category 2, with an understanding that there are 50 in total. So this, I think this is going to be an upgrade that I would like to see all of the other models come up with, because this way it gives us a very good representation to be able to show others as to exactly and get an exact probability count on that. So I am going to discard that particular one, and I want to run this forward just a little bit further. Now, if you notice, we're starting to see quite a few more dots pop up. And I've only run this forward another 36 hours. So we are at 8.5 days at this point. So we are going to then, well, from the model initiation. So this would be Thursday night. Now we had looked at what was Friday. One thing that I would like to point out here with the Google DeepMind is that few of these ensemble members get a little bit too close for our friends up here into the northern Leeward Islands. It's just something that I would recommend that these folks just monitor. That's all. Nothing to get concerned or worried about. Just keep an eye on the forecast just to make sure that this thing is going to do what it's supposed to do. So we're going to try to catch one of these long track ensembles here, and we are Wednesday, September 24th. So we come out here and we have no ensemble members. Of 21 ensemble members have nothing, and then you're talking about 15 tropical storms, 2 category 1s, 8 category 2, 2 category 3, 2 category 4. Because of the way that the Google DeepMind this year has been performing and has been performing quite well, I would recommend folks to just look at that particular feature. Now, if you try to look at the Google DeepMind on your phone, this particular feature that I am using here is not available. So you must do it by a computer. But that, with the intensity distribution, please keep in mind that there are 50 ensemble members. Those represent 2% of probability. So right here, a 72% chance of tropical storm right now from the Google DeepMind. And that would be on Thursday, September 18th at 8 p.m. So a pretty decent chance for a tropical storm to get itself going. And there are definitely reasons why that may occur. So what we have here is the 850 millibar cyclonic vorticity. We have the Euro on the left and the GFS on the right. This is meant to represent areas of spin approximately 1 mile above the ocean surface. So as we run this forward in time, we will note that there are a few areas of spin and rotation out there. Nothing really getting itself too organized yet. And we are getting out towards day 7, day 8. And now at this point, the euro is showing a broad area of spin. The GFS is continuously showing this CAG feature. We do not have the euro as of yet confirming that we get a CAG feature. So this long range, as far as the models are concerned, this could be slow to develop and could be very broad in nature. I'm going to run this out 10 days. I'm not worried about what the GFS is showing, because the euro really has nothing that's even remotely close. But when we do get to the end, now we are out September 19th at this point, 10 days out. This is where things really start to become interesting, because we've got our area that is currently highlighted now, potentially another spot here, and a strong wave coming off. Though the GFS has nothing of the sorts. So the euro doesn't agree with this, and then you've got the GFS here, and the euro doesn't agree with that. So they are in great amount of divergence. But when we get towards the third week of September, we are also going to have a positive MJO phase rolling through. So could we see development? Absolutely. And we'll go over our nightly update with the MJO here just momentarily. Now what we're going to take a look at is our atmospheric humidity. On the top we have our 500 millibar level, and on the bottom we have our 700 millibar level, with the euro on the left and the GFS on the right. This is meant to represent areas of the atmosphere between 18,000 and 10,000 feet, so approximately 2 to 3.5 miles above the ocean surface. What we want to know is, where is that dry air? The dry air has been eliminating a lot of our tropical cyclone potential this year, so we really want to take a look at where the dry air is going to be located. And we want to see how it is interacting in the low to mid levels of the atmosphere. So as we continue to run this forward, we will note that we have that wave out there. We know that neither one of these develop anything in significance. Now, one thing that I would like to point out is that we get this to hour 144. We're at day 6. So there is some similarities and some differences. We have the GFS and an absolute mess of tropical moisture associated with the developing Central American gyre. If we compare that with the euro, we have a 500 millibar moisture plume, but we're missing the 700 millibar component. So this is more of a mid-level moisture surge and not really a surface moisture surge, as to where the GFS is getting it much further down towards the ocean surface, down 10,000 feet and below. Now, we're going to run this forward, and we're going to see exactly what occurs here. Now, as we get this towards day 8, right here, right there, one thing that I would like to point out is there are some similarities tonight. We do have this stream of moisture from the GFS, as we've seen day in and day out. We also have a little bit of moisture here with the euro, so they are somewhat similar. Now, our wave out here into the open waters of the tropical Atlantic, we know that it is not organized by either one of the deterministic models here tonight, but we do have other areas in and behind the Euro and stuff like that. But keep in mind, this is just looking for the dry air. And the dry air is there, but not everywhere. And as you could see, by the time we get to day 10, we do get some dry air kind of mixing in with what looks to be on both models tonight a moisture surge coming up from the Western Caribbean and Central America into parts of southern Florida. Now, whether this is an organized system or not, that remains to be seen. As you can see, there is a frontal boundary in association with this as well. You got that front right there. So there is a shear component. We'll go over that in just a moment. That would help to keep anything from organizing, but it does look to be, at least what the models are showing here tonight, that a potential moisture surge. Now, we're not saying development again. Let me be very clear. A moisture surge from the tropics could be in store for portions of Florida next week. So I just, please, let me be very clear. Development is not guaranteed. So now we are going to take a look at the wind shear. Now that we know that we don't really have a seed, the GFS wants to try to develop some type of broad area and disorganized low pressure. The Euro doesn't really want to develop the area of low pressure, but does want to bring a moisture surge associated with the frontal boundary. Okay, now let's check the wind shear. We have the Euro on the left and the GFS on the right. So we know that this is down towards day 7 and getting to the latter part of our model run. So now here we are at day 7. We've got the development of the gyre here with the GFS. Okay, I will go ahead and put the crayon on that. We have the development of the gyre right here. We do not have it there on the Euro. You do not see it. The one thing that we do see at day 7 is a very, very strong component of wind shear across the Gulf of Mexico. Now, again, we know that this moisture surge is going to occur here on the models alone, and the models can change. But the moisture surge were to occur here as we get in towards day 6, 7, or 7, 8, 9, and 10. Well, the shear belt that we were looking at there over the Gulf of Mexico never really abated and has not disappeared. As we could see, though, the GFS has a little bit of a system that tries to kind of get up, but the shear uncouples it, and the Euro just brings this moisture surge up associated with the trough itself. So it will be very interesting to see exactly what is going to occur in the upcoming models over the next 2-3 days per se. Do we get the Euro to start to lean a little bit more towards a development of a Central American gyre? Do we get the GFS to fall back in time with the development of the Central American gyre? That's the big, quote unquote, $64,000 question. And right now, we're kind of in that wait and see mode, because the Global Tropics Hazards Outlook does bring a 20 to 39% chance of development here somewhere into the Gulf of Mexico, down here into the southwestern Gulf, or the Western Caribbean. So we'll have to wait and see. Now, taking a look at our dust, because we do know that there is a little bit of dust out there that is helping to assist the wave breaking situation with the dry air into the Atlantic Basin and the tropical Atlantic. Once we get out to about day 5, and notice we've got an area of spin right here, right there. Now, we already know that we have our dry air present, but we're also potentially getting a little bit of dust to come down and entrain. Now, as we run this forward, though, people will potentially like to see that maybe a little bit more dust tries to stay out here over portions of the eastern Atlantic. This is the area to where we have a little bit of a higher potential for tropical cyclone development. And then notice right here, we have an area, we've got 2 areas that even the NASA, this is not even a tropical cyclone model. This is just specifically for the dust. We've got a wave right here and another wave right there. So even though we only have one on the outlook, we're probably going to get another one a couple days after this one emerges. I would not be surprised in like another 4 days or so that we get another spot on the outlook that would denote this one right here. Possibly. I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not saying that it would, but it certainly wouldn't shock me. Now, taking a look tonight at our MJO. I know we've been kind of diving into this a little bit deeper each night in anticipation of its arrival into our portion of the world. So right now, tonight, what we're looking at, first off, is the GEFS and the GFS. Right now, we're right here. The forecast for this, both models, have it coming back like this and getting over towards phase 8 and phase 1. We are getting into the Eastern Pacific and the Atlantic Basin in kind of this region here. And then you've got being on the African coast or out on the African mainland when we get down into 2 and everything in the Eastern Atlantic. But, it rotates around the planet like this. So if it comes back out this way and amplifies into portions of phase 8 and then attempts to curve back around above this inner circle right here, that means that it's going to be a little bit more amplified than normal. If it's within the circle, it's not really so impactful. You'll get a decent little environment that could be conducive, but it's not going to be tremendously conducive to where you just got an unbelievable amount of rising air and convection that is rotating around with it. So looking at this graphic, we know what the GFS and the GEFS are calling for. Now, if we look at the GEFS ensembles for the MJO, as you could see, some of them have them coming way out and amplifying it out like this. Some of them have them coming through and maybe going like this. So it's all really dependent upon how strong this signal is going to be. Now, of course, we have outliers that basically go all over the place, but we look at the majority of the members themselves. So another way to read this particular feature is here with our 200 millibar velocity potential anomalies. This will, in a way, show us kind of where the MJO is forecast to be and the either sinking or, hostile wind conditions up here around 40,000 feet where the tops of the storms are. Because if you've got a very strong wind or a suppressive force on it, you're not developing shower and thunderstorm activity very high at all, because you either got sinking air or, ripping winds at this point. So if we come back and we take a look, our color scheme is here on the right hand side, and our red colors represent increase or, potentially sinking air, and our green colors represent a decrease in that velocity and potentially rising air at this point. Well, if we scroll down here just a little bit, we will note that on this little map right here, we are located for the Atlantic Basin, pretty much including the Gulf and parts of the Eastern Pacific, right here in this particular box. So we are going to take this box and we are going to come up with it and figure out exactly where our basin is. And as we can, there we go. As we can see, give or take approximately, obviously I didn't get a ruler out there, we do have the potential for some, potentially conducive conditions, and then back down here again to where it just kind of possibly sticks around for a little while. Okay, that's what the GEFS is calling for. Now, obviously, folks, and just so everybody knows, this particular run goes out 15 days all the way to September 25th. Now, if we get these decent conditions here, which is what we are expecting, then you would see the potential for tropical cyclone development. And if we look, September 19th, if we go back to the Google DeepMind, September 19th, we were looking at a, 72% chance for a tropical storm. So it does make sense. Like there is some plausibility there to it. But we never want to trust just one model and one run of one model. So we compare them with the Euro. This is the Euro legacy. This is showing going all the way out to the 25th, same section of the map, same anomalies. There is a big difference between the two, and you will notice it. It is a glaring difference to where the GEFS still remains in a potentially conducive environment when we get down here to the end. But notice that we're getting this more suppressed phase, and our MJO phase, our positive phase, rolls through our area, amplifies a decent amount right here when September 19th, 18th, 17th, 18th, 19th, right there in that range. So that gives a little bit more validity to where we could see a named storm somewhere out there September 19th, and especially for the one out there in the tropical Atlantic and another one in the Eastern Pacific. So as this propagates through, if this turns out to be truthful, you could see here by the time that we get to that last week of September, starting that last week of September, we may be in a little bit of a better environment. But the Euro and the GEFS are definitely not in agreement. So let's throw an AI in there. Now this is the Euro AI, and as you can see, it is in agreement with the Euro itself, maybe getting it out there, maybe extending it a little bit, maybe it hangs around a little bit, and then kind of this signal down here for the 25th kind of falling apart. Where you got a little spot here, you got another spot there, kind of getting into this range, and then you've got the MJO itself. So you could have some Kelvin waves, and we're not going to get all deep into it, or some Rossby waves coming across. But overall, it is this signal that we are looking for. And again, amplification when? September 19th, September 18th, September 17th, right in this range. So it's just something that we're going to have to watch. I'm anticipating, I can almost guarantee you that the season's not over with. We're going to get something else out there. And hopefully the back half of the season isn't backloaded. And we've had some very memorable and very catastrophic systems that have occurred in the latter part of September getting into October. You know, Helene, Ian, Milton. I mean, and that's just Michael. You want a category 5? We'll throw one of them in there too. So Wilma was another one. So we've got to keep an eye on the tropics. It's certainly too early in the season to say that everything is a bust. So now what we're going to do real quick is take a look at Earthnall and our area of highlighted interest, and we're going to run this out for the GFS, and you will note, you'll see when the wave comes off. Boom. As we could see, areas of vorticity just spring up. And it's this one here that's the one in question. Really. So, if we come up to the 850 millibar level, you can see here, this is approximately 1 mile above the ocean surface, and you can see here how strong and tight that wind gradient is coming around and rotating through. All it would need to do is close off and, disconnect itself from the monsoon trough and the intertropical convergence zone, which you can clearly see right here on the surface analysis. Right there. Southern air mass colliding with the northern air mass and getting areas of vorticity spinning up, all up and down that collision zone. Many of them don't even bother to disconnect. They just kind of flare, or they spin up and kind of spin down and just kind of roll along and, are harmless. Then there's those couple others that aren't so harmless. So, yes, I did see, James. I did. So now we're taking a look at the global tropics hazards outlook. We've got an area, a very strong area of development potential out here in the Eastern Pacific. If we were to see this out here into the Eastern Pacific, the subsidence and the outflow from this may help keep anything into the Western Caribbean and the Gulf suppressed. So, and then it's a crapshoot for week 3 as we get into the last week of September. It's a crapshoot. This just screams CAG signal to me for week 3. That just screams CAG signal. Development on either side of Central America with a high rainfall chance right over Central America. Yucatan Peninsula, the Isthmus and the Gulf of Tehuantepec, getting back towards Honduras and Nicaragua. Yeah, this just screams Central American Gyre. So, and it's in that timeline to where I know us Florida folks, we get quite nervous when we get towards the last week of September and start to getting into the month of October. I don't like it. I never do. All right. Let's see. I am going to take a look. I don't see much. Dawn! How you doing, dear? All right. We're now going to jump out to the Eastern Pacific. If we take a look, we do have Invest 95E. You may wonder, What happened to Kiko? Well, Kiko got its final advisory issued on it at 11 a.m. Eastern, 5 a.m. Hawaiian Standard Time. It is now post-tropical cyclone, and the final advisory from the National Hurricane Center has been issued on it. And even all of the warnings and the little watches and stuff like that for the from the National Weather Service office, even those disappeared. So I just pulled all that stuff down tonight. But now we have a 70% chance of development over the next 48 hours and a 90% chance of development over the next 7 days for Invest 95E. And as you can see, this is getting awfully close to the southern coast of Mexico here. Depending on where it consolidates and depending on what it does, we may get it a little bit too close, and some watches may have to be issued. Could be some heavy rainfall regardless whether we get the watches or not, in association with the air mass hitting the mountainous terrain down here. So it's certainly something that our friends down here in Mexico will really need to monitor. The models themselves look halfway decent as far as keeping it offshore and not allowing it to really like pull an Otis or, come up and try to do this number. This has been, neither one of those scenarios look to be likely. It looks to be coming out this general direction and then getting into much cooler sea surface temperatures out here, and then also stable air mass, which would then kill it. And as you could see with the models, as it gets out here, all of that weakening takes place and it pretty much just becomes post-tropical remnant low, unwinds like we've seen so many other of those tropical cyclones that get into that general region of the Eastern Pacific. If we compare that with the Euro AI model, and we can see that there are a couple that try to get it close, but the majority of the guidance wants to bring it up, let me get rid of that line, wants to bring it up like this, and then it hits that cooler water, it hits that stable air mass, it unravels, and when it does, the low-level flow of a more shallow tropical cyclone will then turn it to the left, and or even, like some of them, push it back down this way. Because there is a large high out here that everything will rotate around. That was the steering component for Kiko as Kiko came up this way and now is turned that way because of the low level flow. It lost its convection, so it was no longer on a west-northwest or northwest heading. It started to go more to the west because it was a very shallow storm. And because it lost all its convection, it also lost its advisories from the National Hurricane Center. If we compare that with the GEFS, now the GEFS is a little bit different. As we could see, there are some areas, let's go ahead and run the time on this. If we get to day 7, if it develops quickly, as you could see, there is a maybe. But if it's a little bit later, not really. And then by the time we get out to day 10, you've got the majority of the guidance bringing it up here, again, hitting this cool water and stable air mass that's out here and basically canceling out the storm. But the GEFS also, and the other models also show potentially another one behind it. So that's what we got. All right, last but not least, we have nothing in the Western Pacific, but we've got Tropical Cyclone 3 in the southern Indian Ocean, Invest 93S down here in the southern Indian Ocean, and that looks pretty good. That's got a nice flare-up of thunderstorm activity, and that could be our 4th tropical cyclone of the southern hemisphere for 2025. If we also look up here, this becomes, and maybe not for very many folks at all, but this little particular feature right here is very interesting because this is into the Arabian Sea. So that's why it's Invest 97A. But here's the thing. The Arabian Sea and the Bay of Bengal here, their season is usually tied to right around when we start to see our CAG season. So it's going to be very interesting to watch and see if we get anything else as the monsoon trough itself retrogrades back down the country of India and stretches back out over the open waters of the Bay of Bengal and the Arabian Sea. So, what this is telling me is that the seasons are definitely changing. So, once this starts, that usually signals like, okay, we're starting to get into that, that maybe that final third of the conditions, like start to really watch for the Central American Gyre, really start to watch for the development getting back towards the Gulf and the Caribbean and the southwestern Atlantic, because they're kind of tied to with one another. So seeing this definitely tells me that it's certainly time to start watching a little bit closer to home and not so much out there into the main development region. So, and last but not least, we got to at least show Tropical Cyclone 3, 35 knots, got a tropical storm force wind field on it. But hopefully it'll hold on for a little bit longer and give me something to watch out there. I love watching the storms that spin the opposite direction from the northern hemisphere. It's very interesting. Although, once you do it for a little while and there's nothing in the northern hemisphere to watch, and then all of a sudden you decide that you're going to come back to the northern hemisphere, you're flipped around because everything spins completely opposite when you go down there. So there's always that transition period of, oh, wait a minute. Oh, yeah, that's right. I'm on the other side. So, yeah. All right, everybody. You're going to start initiating a duck report on the tropics. I am so in for this. I really, really want to be here for this. Please record it. I will make sure that we get it to somebody to edit it up real good, and we can have a update of you in your duck costume. With initiating a duck report for the tropics. That would be epic. I would appreciate that. So, all right, everybody. With that, on that note, have a wonderful evening, Jonathan. And for everybody else, y'all have a wonderful evening as well. We will be back again live tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Central here on Facebook and YouTube. So until then, have a wonderful evening, everybody. Good night.